All right, Nigeria's cinema industry is at a fascinating, crossroads. Despite inflation and rising costs, box office revenues are growing, with Nollywood blockbusters pulling record crowds. At the same time, global streaming platforms are competing for the same audiences, forcing cinemas to rethink pricing, content, and the overall movie-going experience. We'll explore the opportunities, challenges, and future of Nigeria's cinema industry and what it means for investors, consumers, and the creative economy. Well, join us for that. Now we have Kene, of course, as a group CEO, Filmhouse Group, joining me right here in the studio. It's great to have you, sir. Good morning.
Thank you. It's good to be here. It's good to be here.
Fantastic.
Pretty early. I forgot your popcorn. I would have.
Yeah, the popcorn would have been right here.
Grabbed you
and while you're answering the questions, I'm just,
No, but thanks for having me.
Fantastic. It's great to have you. And yeah, definitely you are the forefront of, what's playing out in the creative industry, especially when it comes to, the cinema. It's been a while. I've been to the cinema.
You're part of our problem, eh?
Yeah, I think I'm part of the problem. I'm always working. But I'm going to find time, at some point.
We'll appreciate it.
Fantastic.
We'll send you some discount vouchers.
Nice, nice. So what's happening generally in the industry? How's business, really?
Look, business is actually great. Especially because there's this huge overhang from COVID. There's a general perception that consumer behavior has changed, which, frankly, we have. It would be ignorant of us to assume that it hasn't, because it has. The invent of, obviously, more adoption of streaming has been a factor. But I think that when you look at the box office specifically to Nigeria, I think the cinema-going audience in Nigeria has been generally resilient. And that has been predominantly driven by premium content. We've seen that as we have a steady flow and return of content at that premium level, we have also seen audiences react to it. And that's why, if you look at this year to date, looking at last year versus this year, the box office is already up by almost 60% year on year. By the end of September, we're projecting to hit the full year box office of 24 by the end of September in 25, which sets us right on track for another record year. And it would be the highest admissions growth since COVID on a year-on-year basis. And so we're seeing that whilst there is competition for content and competition for eyeballs, the cinemas are continuing to be very competitive in bringing people in and giving them that premium experience.
Right, and definitely there's a cost of living crisis. People are hit on, consumers are hit on every side.
Yeah.
Their incomes at this point, and inflation, currency weakness, even though we've seen stability, in the FX market for a while now.
Yes.
We've seen ticket costs. That has gone up quite a bit. In my mind, because I remember I could go to the cinema at some point, maybe buy a ticket for about maybe 3,000.
Yeah.
Maybe 2,000.
Yes.
At some point, I don't know how many years ago that was.
Maybe only about
that price.
2 years ago.
About 2 years ago.
Yes, about 2 years.
But now a ticket costs about maybe.
Our average ticket price is about 5,000.
5K.
Just a little bit over 5,000 when you look at the average ticket price across the market. But look,
consumers, they don't mind, right? They don't mind the price.
Look, and we have seen them vote with their pockets when it is great content. And I think that that is the work and the responsibility that we have, is to continue to curate premium content. And look, like at the end of the day, I think it's about value. I think that Nigerians are willing to pay for the things that they attribute value to. And I do think that cinemas is one of them. As long as they're not going in there to watch something that they believe is a bit maybe substandard, or that they feel like doesn't quite have the production values and the depth of the storytelling that maybe they're accustomed to, once we're able to curate that, people do respond to that. And look, I know you speak about ticket prices. It is a real thing that is happening with us, but it's happening across the entire market, and we are still below inflation generally year on year. And I think that people recognize that the cinemas are not being exploitative of their market or their audience, and that relationship is very important to the growth of people coming back. Right.
And would you say the cinemas are still as full as they used to be, before now?
So look, at Filmhouse,
weekdays,
no, absolutely.
Weekends, what's it like?
It's always been an occupancy business. Very similar to hotels, right? So you can go into a hotel at 10 a.m. in the morning, or 12, on a Tuesday afternoon, and the occupancy is low. But we're still very much a evening, weekend predominantly business, right? Of course, public holidays, off-school term, all of those parts are parcel of the business. But at Filmhouse Cinemas, and I can speak to at least specifically to our locations, and we have quite a decent spread geographically. We have seen occupancy go up, and a lot of it is as much the content that we are curating for our audiences, but also the service that we are delivering. If you go to any of our locations, like our flagship at the IMAX, generally people do get a good premium service, and they feel that it is value for money. And so that is the job that we have to ensure that we're keeping at the high
All right. So let's look at, investor sentiments.
Yes.
Are investors still keen on, investing in the sector at this time? Are they getting the kind of returns they were promised or they felt they would get?
I mean, I think they are and they should be, right? So they are in that, again, specifically to, especially on the content side of the business, Yes, we have seen there's some uncertainty around the streamers over the last few years, and that maybe would have given investors a little bit of a... But we have seen generally that investors are averagely happy with the sectors and their returns from the sectors. And look, we're very realistic, about the investment opportunities that exist in cinemas. The infrastructure of it all is a thing that matters to investors because it's heavily brick and mortar. But I think that the experience and the content leads, and generally, at least on our side, they are happy.
Right.
Yes.
So let's look at some issues, at this point, because I know there's some movies, latest releases that are supposed to be in the cinema.
Yes.
But there's some websites that you can watch the same movie for free.
Yes, laddie.
And that's growing.
I mean, that's a problem.
It's a big problem.
Yes, it's a problem. It's always been a problem. Like piracy is, it's always been a problem. And we continue to fight that, working with our stakeholders, whether that is our regulators, whether that is the government, and third-party, operators or anti-piracy agencies that can help fight that. Look, at the core of it, it's really about the education of it. I personally have maintained over the years that the primary driver of piracy is the access to content, right? It's the democratizing of the access to content. And I think that as long as we continue to have the content accessible and we're able to communicate and educate, because the vast majority of people, at least in Nigeria, who also don't even know they're breaking the law. They don't even know that this is a thing that they shouldn't be doing. I mean, if you are sat in a city somewhere in the middle belt that maybe doesn't have a cinema, but you want to participate, right? You want to watch the biggest and latest Nollywood film that everybody is talking about. You're going to watch it where you can access it. And if there's no cinemas there, or there are no platforms that are carrying it, the access is a huge driver of that, I think. And I think that we have to continue to work hard at ensuring that we are democratizing access to content.
So right now, it's websites, that are pirating some of this content.
Telegram.
Yeah, there's also apps doing that too.
Yes.
But before now, it was CDs.
Yes.
And I remember vividly around the early 2000s.
That's correct. That's correct.
Those 3-in-1
Absolutely.
CDs.
Absolutely. In traffic.
Produced by Big Boss Jiggerman. I remember that name.
You're a bit too close.
It easier?
You're a bit too close to this. No, of course, with technology and digital, it is a lot more easier for the pirates to get access to the content. A ton of measures that are in place to protect it. And that's the beauty of cinema as well, because if you think back, content that goes through cinemas are one of the least pirated. If you really think about it, there are very few. I don't even know that you can point to one in recent times that has gone to cinema and has been pirated. So it's one of the most protected windows. Once it goes on streaming, then sometimes that's when it becomes free for all. And look, if you went back to the time that you were referring to where CDs were on the road and the streets, the driver of it was, of course, a lot of there was a lot of task force driving that and getting them off the streets. But what also happened was more cinemas popped up. And so it goes back to my point about the access to content, because people want to watch good content, and they want to consume it in a manner that is responsible. Many a times, the responsible version of it is driven by the lack of access to it.
Right. All right, let's look at island versus mainland.
Oh,
The island seems to have most of the cinemas.
so I hear.
At this point.
So I hear.
Ikeja mainland, there are not many
Yes.
cinemas here. Why is that? What's wrong with the mainland?
So look, I think like most things, well, first of all, there's nothing wrong with the mainland. Okay, we love
Fantastic.
the mainland.
We love the mainland.
Yes, and from an admissions point of view, the number one, number two cinema on most films is also on the mainland, right? So the mainland has continually demonstrated huge potentials, huge potentials. I think that what happened is that most of the cinemas, and like with most things, it's cultural adoption. It's, you know, it's where the opportunities sit. You know, I think
the island people are more posh.
And the island, no, I would say that the island saw a very huge boost of entertainment centers and malls and many opportunities at a very short period of time that just drove a lot of cinemas there, right? Because many times, or else it is a stand-alone cinema like the IMAX, like the Lekki IMAX. Most times they're in malls, most times they're in developments, right? So if you look at the mainland, a lot of the mid to big tier malls have cinemas, right? So it's not coming from a place of cinema operators not wanting to be on the mainland. You know, again, I can speak for Filmhouse. You know, we're actively looking to expand on the mainland. If you look at our journey, in fact, we started outside of Lagos, you know, before we came into Lagos, because we understood the strength of the mid-tier cities, the student university cities, and the mainland is king, man. A huge portion of the market share that you see come from the island are coming from people on the mainland that are coming over to the island, right?
So the mainland, we have the power.
Yes,
on the mainland.
I'm not sure why you are excluding me in the we, but yes, we have the power.
Yeah, we have the power.
Yes.
All right, so you did mention the malls.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's a trend, but I've tried to visit the malls, and I see they're mostly empty, you know, at this time. Is that helping, you know, cinemas and the malls, or are the cinemas looking to be outside of the malls at this time?
So look, that's not helping any business in the mall. And, and it's a tough time for retail, generally, right? I'm not going to speak to retail and malls in development because it's not my area of expertise.
Yes, sir.
But generally in retail, it is a tough time, whether that is increased premises cost of running there, whether that is diesel and rents and FX, and you know, there are a ton of different challenges that I am fully aware that retail developers are dealing with. And as you can imagine, given where I sit, I'm interfacing with them every other day. And so I know that their pain is real, and that is a huge function of the macros that we're dealing with in Nigeria. Now, how that cascades to cinemas and cinema operators, of course, it's tough, right? Because they're the same challenges. Premises costs is a huge driver. It's almost 30% of your OPEX and that is on a good economic
That's having a
contract,
business at the mall.
Right? Absolutely, yes.
Right.
Because the rents and the premises costs and the
Service
diesels
charge.
and the service charge and the, you know, for most cinemas, they get up to 40% of your entire cost, right? And that is before you are dealing with rentals and of course paying back producers. And if you know, like us, we represent some of the studios, Disney, Warner's and Sony, you know, you have to send royalties back to them. Many times that's also in FX, you know, so the economics are tough, but the opportunity is huge.
But the FX story is better now. It's been great, right?
Yes, and look, right, we can all see that we would all take it lower. But I think that one of the things that I have to give credit for is there is at least it's stable, right? It's stable. It's
weak,
it's still high.
stable.
It's still weak, but it's stable.
Right.
And for most entrepreneurs, the ability to predict and our ability to have some predictability in the market is extremely useful, because at least this way we can plan, right? And so we're taking the wins where we see them. Of course, we want it to be stronger. We are going to play our parts to make that stronger. But we are grateful for the stability and predictability that comes with it. And I think that that's a message that I think can probably get out a little bit more.
Fantastic.
Because it's not for, there's a lot of effort that I'm sure has gone into building.
Fantastic. And we hope it stays stable, going forward and strengthens.
Absolutely.
Going forward. It was great having this conversation with you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
No, thank you for having me.
Group CEO, Filmhouse Group.
Yeah.
And after this, I must watch a movie.
Listen, man, I'll look out for you, and we'll get you some power.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on.